Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to this week's episode of the My Love of Golf podcast. Thank you for joining us wherever you are around the world. It's just Mike and myself this week. No, Rocket. Rocket has got, he's back in town. The Rocket Tracker has him landed. He's in Brisbane, but he's got the plane-borne lurgy that has attacked his throat, so not able to give us an hour of power. So it's just Mike and I. Mike, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks. Very well.
We're doing the intro a little bit different. We're talking up front, and then we're going to play the music. We are going to play the music because I love the music. But what are we going to talk about this week? We're going to talk about, well, you've been playing some golf. We're going to talk about that. What else are we going to talk about?
We're going to talk a little bit about Napa and the first event back on the PGA Tour this week.
Does that mean the Data Lake's back?
The Data Lake is back.
Excellent. Yep. And then, and what else? We're going to talk about some other stuff that fills our brainwaves about golf. There'll probably be some random ramblings about. We've got the DP World Tour to talk about, of course. There's a bit of live chitter chatter around that. What else have we got? And then you've discovered that the PGA Tour have this week presented their way that they rank players. Is that right?
That's it. Yeah, we're going to have a really, hopefully, a bit of interesting information for the listeners. A little bit of an overview of how they build a PGA Tour event and the order of entry. So. Hopefully it's not too complicated because it is a little bit complicated, but hopefully people enjoy it.
All right. Well, that's the order of proceedings tonight. Sit back, relax, enjoy the episode. Thanks for joining us. Mike, how are you? I hope we don't have any technical issues tonight. I have a new Command Central, a new laptop here, which has got more horsepower in it than the previous one, put it that way. It's able to run this extravagant show, 200 and something episodes of memory bank. So I hope it all works out. New screen, new everything. How are you, mate? You well?
I'm excellent. And when you said you were going to play your favourite song, though, I was pretty sure you were playing that Mike song. I was actually almost certain that's what was coming.
That's your favourite song.
It is.
Mike. Mike.
You asked for it.
Yeah.
It wasn't even a cue for a song. Mike, how was your big tournament last weekend?
Oh, I don't know if we talked about it. It was good. So for people that didn't know, I went down and played in the Lonsdale Open Am. I hadn't played stroke in a long time, but you don't really play it anymore. You play Stableford, or as we talked about in this or that last week, you play par when we have bad days. I was, you know what? I wasn't nervous. But it's just a very different mindset playing stroke, I think, and it's something that I need to get better at doing because I think I was overthinking it a little bit and how I was going to do it and not do anything silly, and ended up playing good for about a tough day down there at Lonsdale. It was a bit windy. I played good for about 14 holes. I played poor for about 2 holes. And then I played really bad for 2 holes, like really bad. So I had a 9 on one hole and I had a 10 on another hole. So I dropped 10 shots off the stick on 2 holes. And I finished 20 over, I think. So my handicap was 10. So I gave up pretty much all my handicap on those 2 holes, which was not great. And for those at home that are going, gee, that's really bad. I actually didn't even get close to finishing last. I was still about only 2/3 of the way down the leaderboard. So it was a tough day.
Talk us through the 10.
Yes.
A double digit, like.
So the 10, the worst part about the 10, so the 10 was, we started on the 10th hole and it was the 13th, par 5, heading out towards the backside of the course. And I'd only played it 2 weeks before and hit driver up to the edge of the green. So I was pretty confident getting to it.
Is it the one that goes down towards the water? Like
it goes down towards the road hole. No.
Oh, yeah, no, I know. Yeah. Another one.
The middle.
Yep.
And yeah, so hit the driver off the tee, pulled it a little bit, and ended up just on the kind of in the second cut on the left hand side. But it was sitting in a funny little sand duney type spot with some almost seaweed coming through, sitting on an odd angle. But I was still confident I was going to be able to get club on ball, so I wasn't too stressed. And just said to myself, right, don't do anything silly here. Just get the 5-iron out and hit something up there. And as soon as the wind hits this, it's going to peel straight back over to the right to the middle of the fairway. And it only had to cut, 3 meters, 5 meters max. Hit it and just didn't move. Just went dead straight and then didn't clear the left edge of the rough. So went up there and wasn't there. So I'd already hit a second just in case I didn't find it because I thought I'd saw it go to a spot where I wasn't going to find it. So then all of a sudden it was driver 1, hit 2, drop 3, hitting 4 into the middle of the fairway where I was trying to hit the first one. And then pulled out the new Magic UW Callaway, which I did tell you before the tournament. I was getting the lefts with, and hit a big screaming hook. And again, I thought, oh, this is just left of the green. This is fine. That's where the next tee is. Didn't find it. Don't know whether someone picked it up or because there's a few groups that were sort of crossing around. Didn't find it. So I had to go back to the fairway and drop again. And just eventually it was a 10. And you know what? I really had to. That's when I had to knuckle down and go right. And then I actually played pretty reasonably well from then out on, and then sort of finished off the. I think I finished the front about 12 over, not even with a 10. And I thought, that's not horrendous. Now the aim is here to break 90 and sort of still be okay. And the guy I was playing with was the same handicap as me, and somehow we had the same score after 9, and he didn't have any big blowout holes. He just sort of had death by 1,000 cuts. And then I had 9 on the first. If anyone's played the first at Lonsdale, it's not a long hole. Hit a pure, beautiful hybrid straight down the middle. Was very happy. Again, it was pretty windy. Had about an 8 iron in and hit something up high and was aiming for the left-hand ledge. But it's a bit of a ski slope down to the green from there. Didn't grab the ski slope, sat up on the top, and then I had a little baby pitch and hit the baby pitch to where I wanted it to go, and it grabbed the ski slope and ran down, but kept running straight across the green as they will do at Lonsdale. Ended up in the pot, and that's when the lack of bunker practice got me. So I was up against the face in the bunker, and just couldn't get it up quick enough to get out, and then left myself in a really bad spot. And that didn't get out either, and then the third one got out, and I was like, yeah, that was a long day. It was still good. It was still good fun.
Just remind everyone of the fun of Lonsdale Links down there in the Bellarine Peninsula in Point Lonsdale.
Yeah, look, if anyone's down that way, I would highly recommend it. I know most people head down to play, say, 13th Beach, which is also both two good courses. And the beach course in particular is an exceptional course. But yeah, I would say recommend definitely heading over to Lonsdale and even to Curlewis, are two that people don't probably venture off to play as much. And yeah, it's great fun. OCM boys have done it up. The same guys that did up Sandringham and a little course called Peninsula Kingswood. You might have heard of, Ross. So yeah, highly recommend it. And the other thing I'd recommend is Mike Cocking's now his little got his course guides. So the course guides there at Lonsdale now, which I would highly recommend getting, because if you haven't been there before, it's very, very valuable to know where the holes are going, because there are a few blind shots and there are a few little squared off greens that you don't really know what's going on until you've played it once. And I think it's very valuable to have that in your pocket.
We do spend a little bit of time talking about the courses that we love and play. We're both part of a top 100 panel, both of opposing magazines. So, part of our charter is to try and experience as many courses as we can for the purposes of that. And we enjoy that. I don't think anyone that's listening to this, certainly not for the first time, understands that we love our golf and golf courses and a little bit of golf architecture, not total golf nerd. No, that's not the right word. Golf nerd. I mean that in the
aficionados,
politest possible sense. Golf architecture nerds.
No.
But we do appreciate good architecture.
Yeah.
And certainly appreciate the people that are behind it. Now, you mentioned Mike Cocking's course guides. And I recently listened to a bit of a story about Mike, his course guides. Shane Darby, who was a member of the podcast, not a member of the podcast, but he was a guest on the podcast some time ago, back in lockdown. I met Shane on Twitter, as I do many people. We had a conversation. He'd obviously listened to some of the podcasts and the interviews that we'd done. So he was a fan. He was the one that would walk down Portmarnock Beach over there in Dublin and listen to the My Love of Golf podcast. So I struck a chord with Shane. He is truly knowledgeable man about golf course architecture. He is over there in Ireland, member at Royal Dublin, and just loves it. He has a great podcast. So I think that this podcast, helped whet Shane's appetite for having a crack at his own podcast. It's called the Firm and Fast Golf Podcast. And he does a wonderful job of, and I've probably talked about it before, but he does a wonderful job of interviewing people. And every time I listen to one of Shane's podcasts, it gets better. And his guests are phenomenal. And, it really is a podcast, and I like to listen to it. I don't listen to many other golf podcasts, but I like to listen to it because every one of the guests that he has, I always learn something, which is great. He did an interview. He achieved something that I haven't been able to achieve. Often talked about it, and we've planned it, and we haven't done it yet, but he's pinned down Mike Cocking, and he has a chat with Mike for about 2 hours. So if you want to learn about every project that Mike Cocking's been involved with. And I know Mike pretty well, and I followed his career, and I met Mike before he was a golf course architect, randomly through mutual acquaintances. But I followed his career pretty closely. I found out stuff that I didn't know Mike had been involved with by listening to Shane's podcast with him. So if you want to listen to Mike, talks about Peninsula Kingswood, he talks about Sandringham, he talks about Lonsdale Links, which Ashley Mead was the lead on. He talks about all his other experiences working alongside Tom Doak. So I won't spoil it, but there's a heap of stuff. But he talks about his course guides because Shane asked him about his talent for painting. Now, if you've watched the video, obviously this is a cue, unplanned cue for the plug. As I move around, you can see my beautiful picture of the Peninsula Kingswood North course, which is personally signed by Mike. It's got my member number on there. We got the opportunity to buy the course artwork, which Mike painted. It's one of Mike's watercolors. Now, the only way to get a Mike Cocking course guide painted and drawn by Mike Cocking is if you have a course done by him. So if you want the course guide, because I think people ask him about course guides all the time. He said, no, I've got to build a course. And then you get a course guide.
That's fair enough. Good way to get business doing course guides too.
A long way around getting back to the Mike Cocking course guide.
I've got the 2 PK ones here.
Mm-hmm.
I've got the Lonsdale Links. Sandy doesn't have one.
I think Sandy does have one now.
Do they?
Yeah, maybe I could be wrong.
There's another one that I've got. Did he do anything at Kingston Heath? I reckon the Kingston maybe
is the OCM of the consulting architects there, so they're doing the short course.
Feeling. I reckon there's some Kingston Heath watercolor that I've seen that looks like one of Mike's or something very similar.
Yeah. So Bonnie Doon, all that sort of thing. So anyway.
Yeah, maybe I've got a Bonnie Doon one as well.
So Mike was the main guy at Bonnie Doon. So anyway, there you go. We digress. The real purpose of tonight's podcast with that rocket
was to talk about me having a 9 and a 10, and that was the show.
Look, I asked you about that. I didn't want to embarrass you.
No, I'm not embarrassed by it at all.
But I was just more interesting, to see how you rack up 10.
Believe me, I said to the boys, and it's probably a piece of my game that has greatly improved in the last 10 years, because I know a friend of mine, Conrad, who I used to play a lot of golf with when I first started, he knows that if I'd wiped the first 2 holes playing Stableford, I was gone, mentally cooked. You'd pencil me down for 10 points for the day and send me home. Whereas, it was my 4th or 5th hole and I've had a 10, and I walked off laughing, and I said, I just can't. I don't even know if you can write 10 on the card, because you had to fill in the little dot. I don't even know if there's a 10 there. I literally can't remember the last time I've had one, even playing friendly stroke with mates. I can't remember.
It's a good response to be able to laugh at something that you don't know how to fill in, but yeah,
that was it. And then there's no, when you're going to an event like that, and there was some exceptional golfers there. I think I told you before I went down, some +3 and +4 handicappers. The average handicap would have been 2 or 3. Me off a daily of 10. I think of the 105 players, if you ranked us by handicap, I was ranked about 85th. And at the end of the day, I think I finished tied for about 60 something. So off the stick. So I certainly, when I look back at it and go, I did that with a 9 and a 10, I really wasn't that upset about it.
In another random fact, I won't bore everyone with the long version of the story, but I have a former colleague. He's not a former colleague. We didn't actually work together, but Matty Bruce is a customer of mine at the golf shop at the Drummer Golf. And Matty Bruce came in one day with his Mercedes-Benz jacket on. We got talking about Mercedes-Benz, obviously, because, I used to work there for 12 years. He was then working there. Oh, he still is working there. We had a number of stories and friends in common that were colleagues, past and present. So we struck up a chord there based on our, both working at Mercedes-Benz. We stay in touch. Matt's a member at Riversdale, great golfer. Matt and I saw each other at the Open. So Matt was going to play golf, but he broke his foot playing mixed netball and had to hop around St Andrews in a moon boot. His accommodation was camping, so he camped there at the campsite, which was I've got a good look at the campsite. It looks pretty. It wasn't just tents; it's like glamping type tents. And I gave Matty a lift back to Edinburgh with his backpack. Stuffed him in the back of the car with the other people I was taking back, and I dropped him off his accommodation. It was the last time I saw or spoke to him. So that was obviously back at the Open. I was sitting at Peninsula Kingswood the other day. I was about to go and do some filming for Drummer Golf, and I looked at my emails from work, and there was an email there from Matty Bruce saying, "Hey, how you going, Ross? Great to see you in St Andrews. I've been fitted up for some clubs and I want to get them. So, that was Friday. And then, so I was like, interesting. I was just thinking about you and we had a chat, blah, blah, blah. I said, what are you doing for the weekend? He said, I'm going down to Lonsdale to play in this open event. Okay, cool. And then I spoke to you that night and he said, I'm going to play in this open event. So I just spoke to someone who's playing in that and you were playing with him. You were paired with him out of those 150 people. You were paired with him.
It was like, he said, his name's Matt. If he comes up and says, g'day, Magic, his name's Matt.
Because I told him to go and say, Mike's down there from the podcast. So I'm going to say g'day to Magic Mike and call him Magic and he'll have the head wobbles up and
mate,
he'll probably have a 10.
And I said, it's funny. There's a guy in my group called Matt because the first thing you do when you're a 10 handicap playing an event like this is you look at the guys in your group to make sure they're not all off +3. And I said, what's his name? He said, Matthew Bruce. And I looked up and said, well, you wouldn't believe the bloke in my group is Matt Bruce. And first tee, he said, Mike. I said, yep. He goes, Magic. And I said, yep. I said, you're going to run with that. So that was good.
How did he play?
He played well. He only had a couple of bad holes, but he wouldn't have been miles away from his handicap, I wouldn't have thought.
It's a good system, those open events. How much did it cost you to play in that?
Oh, it was, I want to say it was about $70.
Mm-hmm.
So a normal round at Lonsdale Links on a Saturday would be about $90, maybe $100. And this was $70, and that included lunch. And so we didn't know what that included. So the three of us went into the clubhouse post and sat down and had a quiet beer. And we said, what do we do about the food? They go, well, how many at your table? We said 3. I said, it's alternate drop. Felt like I was at a wedding for a second. Thought someone's going to get fish and someone's going to get a steak. And they came out with 2 burgers and this beautiful fish. So there you go. And they just dropped them down and that was it. This massive hamburger for $70.
You got fed as well.
Yeah.
I'll quickly tell you, in Scotland, it's a great time if you go to Scotland and you can get to play in some of the open tournaments that they have over there. They're quite popular. And it's like £20 and you can usually save a whole heap of money if you can get into one of them. I played in 2 or 3. The first one was at Crail on the Craighead Links, which is the Gilhance course over there. First tee, lost ball. There's a big bit of gorse in the middle of the fairway, straight into it, bang, lost ball. Had 1,000 that day. And then I played in one, the Willie Park Putter, and it's quite a significant open amateur event in East Lothian at Royal Musselburgh. Playing 2s, got paired in this 2, pulled my driving iron out on the first tee at Royal Musselburgh, bang, lost ball. So both open amateur events at significant golf courses, lost ball first tee.
But did you have a 10?
Probably did.
No.
I can't remember.
I've just looked it up, I should say, because someone might know him who listens. The winner was Connor McDade from Royal Melbourne. So well done, Connor. You beat me by about lots. I don't think the 10 was the difference. He shot -4, which I'll give you the tip. That was exceptional.
I think is Connor Dennis's son?
I'm not sure.
Dennis McDade, the coach of Mark Leishman and Matty Griffin, spent some time with Dennis at St Andrews with inside the ropes as he was following Griff around. It was good to chat to him. He obviously coaches at was Dennis coach at Peninsula Kingswood on Fridays, and Yarra Bend. There you go.
Yeah, so he was first. I finished T66 of gross and net. I don't think it would have been much better. Net, I finished 57. So again, with a 9 and a 10, that's not horrendous.
You just keep going. Hey, was it an Ivo? Is it an Ivo Whitton event? It was an Ivo. Okay, right. Okay, there you go. I didn't realize it was an Ivo. Very good. Well, good on you.
Play some more coming up if I can. Just for, it's good practice.
Yeah.
When you, yeah. I did. I really enjoyed it. Didn't play like we've just been through. Didn't play great, but you know what? It's still good fun.
Was there any old fellas like me there? Like old boys?
Oh, not that old. No. Yeah, of course. There's all sorts of people there. It was great.
That old.
I played with a bloke on because I've got nothing else to do. My wife was busy in Melbourne. I was down there by myself and I stayed at Barwon Heads on Saturday night. And I got up on Sunday morning and played 13th Beach Creek course. And I played with 3 guys that used to be members at Cranbourne. Very short story. 2 of them are at somewhere else now. One of the boys, I can't remember his name, but he's from up at Echuca now. And he was 62, I think he said, and he was playing off 7. And he was striping it. I think he shot about 6, 7 over. And I said, and we're chatting away, and because my back was killing me. And I said, "How old are you?" And I'm 45. He's like, "Oh," he goes, "I'm blah blah blah." And I said, "If I'm still hitting the ball like you at 62, I'll be very, very happy in life." It was just, it was good to watch. was great to watch. He was hitting it no different to how I was hitting it off the tee. Just very straight, and the irons very straight. If he self-proclaimed poor putter, he putted even close to okay. Probably would have gone close to giving par a shake. It was good.
All right, now, Mark, let's get to the real meat and potatoes of what tonight's podcast is. There's a little bit of chat about last weekend's golf. Obviously, there was a lot of chat if you watched the Twitters and the press goings on around the DP World Tour BMW PGA in the UK. A lot of chat about that. No PGA Tour because this week's the first week of the PGA Tour wraparound season. We've got the Fortinet Championship up in Napa Valley. Of course, next week we go to the President's Cup. We'll come back and talk about President's Cup next week. But there's also some information that's come fresh out, and it's a question that we get a lot. You get a lot in particular because you are the guru of the stats, and therefore expected to know everything about the PGA Tour, how you get in, how you qualify, how you rank, etc. There's a bit of information that the PGA Tour have put out, which I think it might be interesting for us to chat about because it certainly clears up who gets in, who isn't in, and how you do get into some of these events, especially as it unfolds and there's these new elevated events. So that's still a little bit unclear of how many people's in that, in those events. But I think you can clarify a lot of questions around that. What else? There's some more information on the Australian Summer of Golf, and an event added at Cathedral Lodge last week, a 2-day event, and believe it's going to be fairly well patronised by some significant golfers of Australian golf royalty. So looking like that's going to be good. That fits in between the Oz Open, and then there's the Super Sixes down at Warragul.
Yep. Gippsland.
Yeah, Gippsland Super Sixes. So it's a 2-day event, sits in there. Still, Vic Open is not on the PGA Tour Summer of Golf calendar, so we're both still curious as to why the Vic Open is not on there. There's some conjecture around, is it just government sponsorship? Is it still up in the air? Who knows? So there's some conjecture around that. But yeah, it's shaping up that, it's great to have another event in there, have that 2-dayer in there at a course. I believe it'll be televised on Fox.
Yep, televised for sure.
I think there'll be some decent prize money, and it's at a course which is pretty much unobtainium for 99% of the golfing population in Australia. So probably the first time that anyone sees Cathedral Lodge outside of Paul Gow's golf show when he's playing golf there with Nick O'Hearn and a few others. So interesting. So let's go back to the BMW PGA, won by Shane Lowry, a very, very popular winner.
Yeah.
It was interesting when I turned it on Sunday night for the late night shift, which if I was on, I did a typical late night Sunday shift if you work shift work, because all you hear of people working late night shift work is they fall asleep. So I fell asleep. I didn't see the end, but I watched the first sort of 10 or 11 holes. P. Reid was at the top of the leaderboard when I turned it on. Didn't get mentioned. Like, may have got mentioned once, but was avoid talking about the LIV golfers on the broadcast. It must have been a mandate.
Was he in the mix though, but teed off early?
Yeah, he teed off early. It's sort of like lights out, 10 under or something on the final day. So he was, the scoreboard leader. As I think when John Rahm finished early, like 2 hours before the winner, posted like 14 under.
Yeah,
was a beautiful eagle on the last two, by the way. Rolled the slowest rolling putt down a little hill. They bumped him down to like second or third, but there was still no chat about it. And Big John Rahm had to stay around and only missed that by a shot in the end, as did Rory. And
I saw Rory's last putt. I didn't see too much of it, but you're not wrong. He's a popular winner. Like all the socials this last couple of days of Shane Lowry have been fantastic. It's if you ever wanted an event, that's what you'd want to be like. Like he just couldn't have been happier. It was great to see.
Well, he hadn't won since 2019 when he won the Open.
Yeah.
But he's had a great year. Like his performances have been, you'll know and probably have there how well he has performed, just out of the limelight. But he's been there or thereabouts for a long stint on the PGA Tour.
He has. He's cost me some shekels this year. I won't lie to you. Young Shane was he would have been one of my picks in at least 2 of the 4 majors this year. He played really good golf without getting it done, and I think that is the PGA. Well, that's professional golf, isn't it? Like you can play exceptional golf all year and not get close to winning an event. But if you have a peak in the correct week and the people around you, their peaks aren't as high as yours, then you will win. But no, he I can definitely give you his his numbers for the year.
Yeah, as you look at that, so you talked about socials. I think Shane, when he does get active on the socials, and he's not super active, but when he does get active, it's usually pretty quality. You'll remember his Open winning socials, and usually revolves around Guinness and having a drink. He did something where he said, I'm Shane, I'm your PGA champion. This is my first drink. And then his coach, his caddy, and his manager all did the same. And I forget his caddy's name.
he was on another planet.
He was absolutely munted. It was clever. It was funny. Anyway, good on you, Shane. Well done. Very popular winner with the Irish contingent. Even Zach Tui got on board shouting out the big Shane.
Well, he finished with his win this week. He's moved up from 23 in the world to number 19, which is, exceptional. But yeah, BMW PGA, he won at the BMW Championship at the PGA Tour, second last event. He finished 12th. He finished 9th at the Irish Open, finished 10th at the Canadian, 23rd in the PGA, 3rd at the Heritage, 3rd at the Masters, 2nd at the Honda, 13th at the Players, 12th at the Valspar. That's a lot of top 15, 20s there. He had a very, very, very good year this year.
Where did he finish in the Open?
21st, T22, 21.
Scottish Open?
Scottish Open. Did he play?
I can't remember.
No, didn't play.
Didn't play. Okay.
He went from the Irish into the Open Championship. T9 and then T21.
So, but there was a fair bit of chat going around, about the LIV players, the socials with, which I thought some quarters of it handled it pretty well. The
Billy Horschel
and Poulter stuff.
Yeah.
Do you think they collaborated together to make those tweets about the dress, about the blue? You wear. I told you, you wear the blue and I wear the white.
Yeah, I don't know. Look, I think Billy, his heart's in the right spot. And I don't remember who I was listening to this week. It was a different podcast, but they sort of said Billy had actually gone, and I might have been nailing up. He'd actually spoken to a few other tour players, not necessarily the cream of the crop, and got their thoughts on the LIV guys playing there. But at the same time, I don't really think it's his job to be the mouthpiece. And if you get asked in a press conference and you want to make comment on it, that's fine. But to go on and on and on about it every time, all week, it was a bit weird. I probably really appreciated the way that John Rahm described the week. He said, Poulter, Westwood, these guys want to come and play this event. I've got no problems, right? These guys have supported this tour and played this event for 25 years, there's no problem with that. But, Taylor Gooch coming here and at keeping a guy who's sitting on the bubble of trying to keep his DP World Tour card, another Spanish guy, out of the event because he's the one on the edge who's bumped because Gooch is playing, that I'm not comfortable with. And that is a prime, perfect summary of what the issue was. It's not about LIV versus PGA Tour versus DP World Tour. It's not about that, right? It's about you're doing it to try and keep your world ranking points up. Cool, get it. But you're putting at risk someone else's livelihood so you can do that, which is not good. You know what I mean? Someone's working their tail off all year and you can just step back in. If you don't want to do that anymore, don't do it. Don't. If you want to go and take the money and play on the other event with no card and do that thing, that's great. And don't go there and say, I'm going there because I can play less, but then I also want to play here more because no. You can't do both. You just, it doesn't work.
It leads us to something that we'll talk about in a minute, but so Taylor Gooch just gets in, he can nominate and enter for that based on his world rankings. Is that right?
Yeah, he would have had, order of entry for sure.
Mm.
He would have been, he's top 50 in the world comfortably. And he would get in on that status for sure.
They haven't got you had to have played in this event previously to qualify to get in.
No.
Yeah, it's a...
Taylor Gooch is...
He finished fourth too, by the way, talking about Taylor Gooch. Yeah, finished fourth.
He's a good golfer. I've said it. I said it when he went. He's the one. He outside of Cam Smith, obviously. Taylor Gooch is a talent. And he's been in the data lake tips a lot. He's a very good golfer when he's on. Yeah, he's one of the ones that I think that they'll miss down the track.
No problems, no issues with P. Reid. Does he fall into that category of supported the tour before?
He did support it, and
Yep.
I know that he keeps telling people that he was awarded a European Tour card for the second person past Jack Nicklaus or whatever his ridiculous statement is. He got it because he won a major. But he went and took it and did something with it. So he accepted it way before LIV, way before any of this stuff, and actually played a handful of events there. And he win the race to Dubai?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
So like, he's actually, I've got no problem with that. There's only one player that I think, outside of the main guys that have just turned up, there's only one player that everyone probably had a problem with playing, or maybe it was 50-50, and definitely had a problem with after withdrew. That was Sergio. Sergio's only played the event once in a million years. Hasn't been there. And then plays one round. Obviously, with the Queen passing away, it becomes a 3-round event, and they have a day off, or 2 days off. And he shot 78 or something poor in round 1, so he wasn't ever going to make any money. So he decided to fly home and go to a gridiron game, college football game.
Wasn't great optics.
That's just dumb. Hey, if you're going to make a 10, laugh about it. Move on. But stay involved. Don't go, oh, you know what? Oh, at the turn, I might just shoot off and go home. I've wasted my time here. Like, who does that? That's not golf. That's not what golf's about.
Most people can't even comprehend how it actually happened. Like, how do you get from playing there to being on the sideline of a game? Like,
he's got a private jet.
Yeah, he must
get
have
150 million from LIV. He can do what he likes.
Yeah, I know, but like, he must have just he must have pre-planned it. Like
who knows? Maybe Greg said, "This is what I want you to do," and he said, "Okay, Sharky, I'm on."
Well, it's apparent that couple of those guys had pre-prepared questions for the press conference where DP World Tour laid out everything that is going to see them, with this more collaborative approach with the PGA Tour as it evolves. So that's a good thing, because I know that we've said DP World Tour, I love it. There's a reason why I stay up and watch golf in Europe, because I love watching golf in Europe. I love watching the good golfers in Europe play good golf in Europe. It suits me. I like watching that. But the question is, if it's going to get watered down and it's going to be like a third tier, that was a worry. And if they can get this collaboration happening, and I still think they're going to be pulling more talent from the European Tour across to the PGA Tour. But anyway, if the talent comes through the pipeline, well, then we can have good golfers come through. That'll all work itself out. But I'm glad that there is some greater collaboration, as long as the PGA Tour doesn't use it to their advantageous position to, take the best talent out of the European Tour and bring it to America. Yeah. Anyway,
doesn't that happen anyway?
It does. I know.
I mean, I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I mean, most players, once they get to the upper echelons on the European Tour, want to jump in.
They want to go. Well, what I should have said is, as long as these elevated events that are going to now happen across both tours are genuine elevated events when they hit Europe, and there's great status players playing across there, and the guys are available to play in it as an elevated status qualifier, do go and support it.
I guess have to. I think that from the sounds of what Rory said this week, it sounds like this year will be a middle of the road year, and the gateway to 2024 when they go back to the calendar year, and the 20 events or whatever it is that are going to be the elevated will be across both Europe and the US. And I would be shocked if they didn't have at least 5 elevated events in Europe, and it'll be the Scottish, Irish, the European Masters, might be the event that they have at the end of the year. It'll be those events. They'll spread it around a little bit. There might be one here, but there will,
as long as we can get the Irish Open away from Mount Juliet or the K Club.
I don't know the courses well enough to argue. I don't know.
No,
I don't.
There's some of the best links golf in. You reckon links golf in Scotland's good? The links golf in Ireland. Just take it up to Rosapenna, or take it up to Ballyliffin, or take it out to Lahinch again, or wherever. Anyway, we go on. Back to the DP World Tour. Adrian Otaegui, top 213 minus 12, drop from LIV. Not in? What is that? We still don't know how people get dropped. Out of the 80 odd people that are signed.
But he's not playing at all this week.
He's definitely not in that.
in the same team, but is he in a different team? I don't know.
Let's just see if we can quickly bring that in. Adrian Otaegui. No, because
We
David
talked about this before. And again, this isn't a live bash. This is just a fact. Their website and ability to look up who's playing and what the teams are for this week is non-existent. I'm sure they've shared it on socials and everything else, but you would think if you've got a website and I can click on Live Golf Chicago and I still can't see who's playing is just ridiculous.
let's just finish with the Wentworth PGA for a sec. Top Scott, we haven't talked about Top Scott, but we have talked about him many times before. 223 Grant Forrest, East Lothian, Craigie Law, and Archerfield specialist. We had some Aussies. Had Maverick in there. We had Scriv. We had Minwoo. We had Adam.
Minwoo had a best round of his life, didn't he? 62, I think, in round 2.
Unbelievable round of golf.
And a stinger thrown in for the socials.
Some stingers in there. I don't think he out-trumped Shane Lowry's stinger draw.
No, that was pretty good.
That was pretty good.
Herbie was there. Herbie missed a cut. So did Wade.
Scott Hender, I think, might have been the top Aussie. Old Hender.
Scott Hender was, yep.
232.
5 under final round.
Herbie missed the cut. Yep.
Maverick, Ancliffe, Adam Scott. Yeah. Lots of Aussies.
Lots of Aussies, lots of Scots. And Foxy withdrew. Is everything all right with Foxy? We've got shits.
I don't know. I would, if I was him, I would have had the shits. Yeah, I've got no idea. We can talk about that next week when we talk about the President's Cup. For a course that they're going to play, and we're getting to this end, but a course like Quail Hollow, where driving the ball at distance is one of the key factors you're looking in the player, how he didn't get a run is beyond me.
This week sees the return of the PGA Tour, and of course, when we have PGA Tour, it sees the return of the Data Lake. Mike's wound it up. He's put the screwdriver in, jiggled it around, got some electricity back flowing through the transmission points. What do we got? The Fortinet.
The Fortinet in Napa Valley. We generated the 1.21 gigawatts of energy required for the Data Lake. I'd nearly forgotten how to use it, to be honest. It took a bit of effort to get going today. I was like, what do I do? How does this work again? It's a bit of a beast of a spaceship of an Excel document.
So who plays? Who is in the field?
Who are the big names?
Yeah, who are the big names? Because a lot of players still they're either President's Cup prepping, or they're either playing, or they're still on holidays. So what sort of field do we have?
Yeah, the biggest names are probably Homer, Max Homer, that is, not Homer Simpson, Hideki Matsuyama, and then it gets lean. Corey Connors, Mav McNeeling, Sahith Thigala, who I think is a good chance this week, Taylor Pendrith, new President's Cup selection, Davis Riley, Cam Davis, Brendan Steele, who's won here, I think, once or twice. Trey Mullinax, Tom Hoagie, Emiliano Grillo. I always do that now. Gary Woodland, Webb Simpson. Yeah, it's not a rate field.
Star-studded field.
Yeah.
Okay. So what does the Data Lake say about the Fortinet?
Well, the Data Lake's it's a bit of an interesting one this week. It's it's one of those ones where I think someone who's going to be hitting it well off the tee. So strokes gained off the tee is important for me. Tee to green, important. I'm leaning a little bit to someone who's a bigger hitter, but I'm not looking at distance off the tee. But I'm looking at people who are who've got good par 5 performance and par 5 specifically over 550 yards. Most 3 of the 4 par 5s are 550 to 600 yards. And then one thing that comes up as a stat on Data Golf, if anyone's very interested in stats like me, Data Golf has a really good tool for tournament-specific numbers. And what they do is they sort of tell you, on average, on any given course, so say, Ross, if there was a tournament at Peninsula Kingswood tomorrow, they break down into 25-yard increments. On average, how many shots into greens per round do you have from that distance? So as an example, 50 to 75 yards in as you're shot into the green. How often does that happen? Well, it only happens 3.75% of the time at this course, but that's actually slightly above average because it's normally around 3% of your shots into the greens of that. Does that make sense? Or is that a lot of numbers? Where it becomes interesting for me is a normal tour course would probably have its most shots into greens comfortably would be between 150 and 175 yards, right? That's your shot into your green. That's around 20% of your shots into your greens, okay? At this course, this actually only happens 11% of the time. So that distance of your accuracy in, I'm not looking at because it's not important here. But where it is important is from 100 to 125 yards. So I want someone who's heavy there because that's versus a normal course. This one's way heavier on that distance, on those shorter irons, the strokes gained in. So on those shorter irons from 100 to 125. So when I put that all in the data lake, I come up with, we'll do 15 names game, and I'll start at the bottom. Now, some of these names might withdraw because it is that sort of tournament. But starting at number 15 and going to number 1, Matthew Naismith, Emiliano Grillo, Kevin Streelman, Brendan Steele, Luke List, Tom Hoagie, Trey Mullinax, Maverick McNeely, Corey Connors, Cam Davis, Davis Riley, Hideki Matsuyama, Taylor Pendrith, Chris Kirk, and number 1 is Rockets boy Max Homa. They are the list, but again, like I said, someone like Sahith Theegala is certainly going to get a bit of more research from me this week.
So there's no what do we call it? It's not tipster. We're starting that at the calendar year, so not in the wraparound year.
I think it's easier to start it later in the year. Gives people a little bit of a holiday and then time to really concentrate on it. Because a lot of the tipsters, there's a little box you can tick, so we could change the competition so that if your player finishes top 5, you actually don't lose him. You get to use him again later. But I think it gets a bit too intricate. I'd rather just go, no, it's just one and done. That's it.
It does become a competition to see if you can keep a couple of people there for the end of the year.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's, Max, hey, Ross, can you take my photo, Homer? Can you tell me Max's partner's name? I think, have they had the baby yet, or they're about to have the baby?
They haven't had it yet.
Haven't had it yet, no.
I reckon her name's Casey. God, if I know that off the top of my head, I've got massive problems.
I want to get the photo that I took of Max and Casey on the Swilcan Bridge.
Maybe they've already posted it.
Yeah, well, that's why I don't know her name. Not a very good.
Oh, her name is, don't know. Lacey, and she has a private Instagram. So good luck with that.
Okay.
G'day, mate. I'm the guy who took that photo.
Hey, she'll remember me intimately. You know, we've swapped notes on cameras. We both had the same camera, the same lens.
Is that the photo?
That's it. I took it.
Oh, he posted it, mate.
Oh,
No, Rocket liked it, not you.
So Max Homer posted my photo.
Yep.
There you
go. And the best part is photo credit says Lacey Homer. She's in the photo, Max. How did she take it?
Max, I'm coming for you. Hey, you keep talking. Hold on. Speaking of photo credits,
that's fantastic.
I do have something else to bum myself up with. One sec. Give me a break. One sec.
You have a break. I'll just keep giving people a couple of names. For people that really, really, really like looking at guys that have played well at the courses historically, obviously Max won here last year. Hideki had a 6th last year. Mav McNeely was 2nd. Brendan still won it back-to-back years, 5-6 years ago. But probably some of the ones that are down the board that have actually played okay here, someone like Scott Pearce, he was 11th last year, has had a 3rd and a 17th as well. So if you are someone that likes looking at people that have played well at the course before, they're probably a couple of names for you, maybe even Troy Merritt. If you are in the Discord, which the Discord people already know that once they've heard this because they've already seen it, I've already posted in there the data lake for the week, including history at this course and the last 5 starts on the PGA Tour and how they finished up. So people can use that if they're having a look at one and dones and things like that as we go through the year. I'll keep posting those into Discord.
Sorry, I'm distracted.
You're back now. You're slandering Max Homer for
no
copyright infringement.
Well, he has every right to. No, I didn't get intimate by saying, I didn't go the full fanboy. I was inside the ropes. So I didn't go, hey, Max. I just went, Max, I've got a mate, Rocket, loves you. Can I get a photo? I didn't go the whole podcast thing and all that sort of stuff. But I actually didn't follow. I actually wasn't following Max Homer. What a crime.
That's why.
No wonder. But it's great. I'm just going to say right here and right now, it's a great photo.
It is a good photo.
Now, I do have to do a couple of little things to verify that was the photo that I did take.
No, it has to be.
Has to be. I've got some
there
photos.
You go. While you're talking about the Open,
There you go. Oh, your flag turned up.
For people that can't see the YouTube, I have my 150th St Andrews 18th hole pin flag that I finally procured, and I will be bringing along to either because I have decided I'm flying up to the Australian PGA, and I've already got my tickets for the Australian Open, so I'll be getting young Cam to sign that for me.
I had one job to do for you, Mike, when I was there. I think the message came through maybe on day.
It was the day after the tournament, so it was or the final day. Yeah.
Get me. Hey, if you're going past the merch tent, can you get me a flag? And I'd already been past the merch tent, and I don't deal with lineups or queues like very well. So I snuck in the back door. You flashed my players past and said, "Look, I need to get back in here because I've got a player to look after." And the guy ushered me straight in.
Yeah.
Biggest pork I've ever told. He got straight in, and there was a bazillion people there. I didn't get a flag that visit, but I didn't go back. And you sent me a message saying, "Hey, get me a flag." And I sent my cousin in. I said, "Can you get a flag?" And
they're all gone.
They're all gone. But I did get something for you. There it is, right there. It's been sitting on the desk there. That's the rocket. And that when the doctor went to the PGA, he sent us all one of these as a gift, and it was out in the mail before we even got back to Australia.
Well,
mine's been sitting.
I was using Doc's for a pitch repair when I played with Doc the other day, and he saw it and he said, "Oh, you're using that?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, that's what it's for. It's a pitch repair." I thought they were just mementos, like you just keep them. No, I'm going to use them.
You put them in action. Look, there's your one there. If you watch on the video, I've got a little box of a pitch repair and a ball marker. That's just the obligatory thing that you get your mates when you go to the thing. The good blokes get that to them on time, but this has been sitting here in the archives for you, mate. It's even engraved with magic on the back. And Rocket's got one, and Dr. Auro's got one as well. There you go.
Dr. Auro.
Just bumming myself up a little bit more again. Speaking of pictures and taking pictures, and I actually did get credit for this. I'm going to throw it up now. For the club golfers, because everyone knows I like taking a photo. I've spent way too much money on camera gear. Still don't know how to use it. The camera gear has no relationship to this photo that I'm holding up. Have a look at that. You like cricket?
Hold over.
You like cricket?
No.
Okay.
No, I didn't.
I'm not much of a cricketer either, but I got paired with Alyssa Healy and Mitch
Stark.
Mitch Stark.
There you go.
Mitch.
I'm a big cricket guy.
Big Mitch Stark, and lovely people. They're in Inside Golf this week, so when you go to your club and you can see the Inside Golf magazine, you'll see Mitch and Alyssa on the front, and I took the photo.
Nice. Where was that? Where was that played? That peninsula?
Yeah, there's PK Sunset in the background. You can't mistake a PK Sunset. It's beautiful.
I don't get invited down there. I don't remember.
I invited you today to the bloody retro day.
I'm going to play.
But seemingly Inside Golf did a thing on Alyssa and Mitch up in Sydney, and Alyssa said, "Oh, these photos that you've taken are crap. This bloke that we met in Melbourne took better photos with his Samsung. Contact him and get the photo because I approve that one, but I don't approve yours." And
is that from your phone?
That's from my phone. No camera, it's just the phone. So yeah, I was at Flinders last week with Andy Naboo, and he picks up the magazine. I said, "I recognise that photo. I recognise that couple. I recognise that. Oh, I took it. I'd even forgotten I'd taken it. There you go." Sorry, I digress about myself.
No, you're right. People know. People know who to speak to for wedding photos and all sorts of things now.
Oh, Samsung specialist. I'm still taken aback by me not following Max Homer, and Max Homer posting what I think is my picture.
That's definitely your picture. I would say that he said photo credit Lacey in that she posted it on her Instagram account, which is your photo. Not she took it because she's in the photo.
There are several photos of Max on that day, and that one's at the front. I'm sure I took that. There you go. Very good. Now, have we got time? We're 53. We've jibber-jabbered for 53 minutes.
No, we'll do it another day.
Do it another time?
Do it another day.
What we're going to run down is some of the qualification criteria for getting into this year's PGA Tour events, because it comes up a lot. How do people qualify for the certain events? So there's an order of qualification. We might go through that next week or the week after.
I think the biggest things that will change this year that we were talking about just before we started recording are there'll be a top 70 this year instead of a top 25 for the playoffs. So that's the first change. And this is the last wraparound season. So they won't be starting in September any longer once they finish this year. 2024 will start in Jan. And then getting on the tour will change. So instead of having the top 25 off the Corn Ferry Tour, it'll be the top 30. And then also instead of 126 to 200 from the PGA Tour joining with the guys on the Corn Ferry that didn't get it to go back to a finals. That won't necessarily be happening, but there will be a Q School game where they're going to give up 5 cards, which is interesting because I think people really like the pressure. I don't know. I think every time, especially Colt Nost, I know talks about it a lot and he says it's something that was amazing, just amazing stories that come out of the Q School. So it'd be good to see that back again. And
so
of course,
when you talk about this Q School, sorry to interrupt. When you talk about that, you like the one that they used to do out in Palm Springs. Well, they haven't said where it's going to be, but I'm sure it was like 6 rounds. Yeah, and it was like a La Quinta and PGA West and La Quinta, maybe at Mission Hills, but no, it was always in the PGA West and across the 2 or 3 courses that are there. Yeah,
it wouldn't shock me.
Yeah.
And then obviously there's 10 cards going to the top 10 of the DP World Tour as well. So there'll be very much a different looking season in the way that it shakes out by the end of this year, and then that'll flow into what looks like we'll have a lot more. Obviously, we'll have the elevated events this year, but next year we'll have the elevated events probably spread over Europe and the US.
Let's just go through it. Let's just go through it tonight.
All right. Well, we won't go through it in depth, but effectively what that all means is that's how the year will shake out. But for a priority ranking for this year, we talked a little bit about eligibility, and we always talk about, Omar Uresti getting a run, and it's ridiculous, and the fact that the better players, the guys that are going well on the Corn Ferry Tour, there's not a lot of benefit in them coming and taking advantage of a position on a PGA Tour event because, well, they want to make sure they sew up their Corn Ferry cards so they can jump up to the PGA Tour the year after. But this is more about if you wanted to qualify for the Lonsdale Amateur, you just have to have a handicap under, I think it was 12, and you could apply. Whereas in the PGA Tour, it's not quite as easy. So they have eligibility criteria from 1 to about 39. So we were just going to have a look at some of the key ones as you run down the list. And not all the players, obviously, but just some of the players. So we'll just kick it off?
Let's just kick it off.
What do you think would be the number one thing? What if you didn't remember, you probably don't remember from before when we were talking, but do you remember what the number one thing was? The number one category?
US Open.
It's US Open. I wouldn't have picked the US Open. I would have thought the PGA Tour would have said maybe the players even, but no. So if you have won the PGA Championship or the US Open before 1970 or in the last 5 years, now I don't know why before 1970. There's got to be some sort of clarification in there, and maybe the way that the tour was set up, but the last 5 years and before 1970. So obviously that's 50 years ago. So there's not many people that would have won it 50 years ago that would still be wanting to play the PGA Tour. But the only guys that are in that category that tick that box are Dow, Fitz and Wald, Ray Floyd, Al Geiberger, Don January, Bobby Nichols, Jack Nicklaus, Gary Player, and Lee Trevino. So not expecting to see those guys playing at Fortnite this week.
No.
The next one is if you've won a Players Championship in the last 5 years. So yeah, that makes sense. Winner of the next, and I'm going to go quickly through some of them. Number 3 is if you won the Masters in the last 5 years, then the Open in the last 5 years, then Tour Championship since 2018. So that'd be 5 years coming up. If you won a World Golf Championship event in the last 3 seasons or the current season. If you won the Memorial the last 3 years, Arnold Palmer in the last 3 years, or the Genesis Invitational the last 2. So we're already down to that's the top 6 categories gone. Obviously, out of those categories, we've only got, 20 players.
20, yeah.
Yeah, maximum. Then it gets a bit bigger. So that's basically the big chunk of it. Then it basically says winners of PGA Tour events. I'm shortening what they've worded it here, but whose victories are considered official in the last 2 seasons or the current season. Winners receive an additional season of exemption for each additional win up to 5 seasons. So basically, if you win 4 times this year, you get 4 years of exemption. If you win once, you get 1 up to 5. If you win 10 times, you still only get 5.
Is that's not changed? Is that new or?
I don't know whether that's new or not sure. But I mean, there's a substantial number of players there. So obviously Herbie's on there. Ricky Fowler's there because he would have had a time when he's won it. Now he'd be probably getting close to being his last season, I would have thought. Jason Day's on there. So some guys that have used up this. Now this is where they sit. Now they might get into an event on a sponsors and exemption or things like that from down the track. But right now, this is where they sit. So they're quite a high category, so that they're not going to have to use those things. But once they drop out of this, then they can still go back to using other ones. But right now, this is where they sit in ranking number 9.
So Herbie,
Yep,
secured his card. Herbie won last year. Herbie got his PGA Tour card.
Yep.
So that was good for last year when he won it on the Corn Ferry Tour playoffs in round 1. That was this year. Then he won on the PGA Tour last year.
Yep.
So when does that carry him through? Does that give him?
I would say that he would have at least another year
after this year.
After this year would be my guess.
Right.
Yeah. Again, plus he would have finished in the top 125 with his money wins as well. So
Definitely.
whether that doubles him up as well, I'm not sure.
Right. Okay.
Then if you got the number 10, so there's some of these exemptions no one's getting. So like right now, no one's exempt in this category. So winner of a PGA Tour event as an amateur whose victories are considered, so that's nobody. No one's won an event as an AM. So if you're an AM and you win a PGA Tour event, you get it on number 10. So good luck. Career money exemption. So right, there's not many people left that are still playing in this category. So Tim Clark, Duffner, Zach Johnson, Ryan Moore, Sabatini, VJ, Jimmy Walker. So they're getting in on how much money they've won over their career, and they're at number 11. So they're, bigger names, I guess, before they're heading off to the probably the seniors tour, a couple of them. Or VJ definitely already there. Players among top 50 in career earning at the end of the preceding season may elect to use a one-time exemption for the next season. So basically, if you're still in the top 50, you can use the career money exemption once for the year after. Players among the top 25 in the career earning as of the end of the preceding season may elect to use a one-time exemption in the next season as well. So it's not like you can just sit there forever and ever and ever and keep playing things. You need to be staying up there, but obviously players are going to pass you and then you drop out and you're not in this exemption any longer. Sponsors exemptions, obviously that's self-explanatory. If people can get in, you need a handicap of 0 or less. So I'm just outside getting a sponsors exemption. Number 13, 2 international players designated by the commissioner. There's no one in there yet, but I'm sure they'll go in. The current PGA Club professional champion, who's Jesse Mueller, so eligible for up to 6 open events, so 6 events, but 3 must be opposite. 3 of those events that he's eligible for have to be the ones that are opposite the World Golf Championship, and the Open Championship. So they're the first 3 that he's eligible for, and then any other sponsor exemptions. So there's category on category there a little bit.
He can't. So he has to play in the opposite event. So he can't play for the Open.
They're the ones he's automatically
qualified for.
Yeah, correct. So he can't just go and play wherever he wants unless there's a sponsors exemption. PGA section champion player of the year from the section which tournament was played. So that doesn't exist. That person doesn't exist. 4 low scorers at the Open qualifying, which will normally be held on Monday. So that's basically the Monday qualifiers. Those 4 get in at number 16. They're guaranteed in. Past champions in a particular event for that week. So basically, winners prior to 1970, you're unlimited to play in that event. So if you've won that event before 1970, you can keep playing there forever. After Jan 2000, you can only get 5 years. So if you've won it in the last 5 years, you can get back in and play again, but you can't play forever. Life members. So PGA Tour life member, you can basically get in at number 18. There's only one player. That's Davis Love. So you can see, like, Davis Love's obviously a big name, but again, we've probably only reeled through the PGA Tour winners takes up a fair chunk, but I would guess we're probably already at about 50 or 60 names. Now we're finally at the top 125 on last year's FedEx Cup that hasn't already been named. And so you've probably got about another 100 names there because you've got 25 players on top of that, like Rory that's sitting above it. And the other guys that are sitting in those kind of weird exemption statuses. So that's where they are. So they're all in. Players who finished greater than or equal to 125 on the PGA Tour list through the Wyndham Championships, equal to top 125 on the PGA Tour official season FedEx Cup list through the Wyndham as non-members. So no one if someone who was not a PGA Tour member, like say it was a Corn Ferry person who went up, or someone who got in and didn't have status before but finished at a certain height on the FedEx Cup, they get in here. So
Mhm.
this is where Will Zalatoris a few years ago got in at this point, because he had enough points. If you remember, I think it was 2 years ago that he would have even made the Tour Championship, but wasn't a member, so he couldn't. But the next year it automatically meant that he was in. Major medical exemptions. So basically, if you're eligible at that point and you're fit, you can play. This is where those guys, but there's only 3 people there. 3-time winners from the Corn Ferry Tour in. Leading points winner from the Corn Ferry from the regular season, leading points from the previous season. So any other 3-time winners, again, there's no one in this status. No one's in the next status. We're going to skip through a couple. So we're already down to number 27 of 39 before we get to the top finishers from the Corn Ferry Tour. So last year's Corn Ferry guys, the 50 that got their cards through either finishing top 25 during the year or top 25 past the finals, this is where they come in. So right now, we've already got probably a pool of close to 200 players that are cycling into events each week. So you can imagine that majority of the time, these are the guys that are making up the 125, 130 that are playing each week. These are the guys. Before you can even get to the next set. The next one is if you've had 300 career cuts. Again, players who have had 300 PGA Tour cuts made as of the end of the preceding season may elect to use a one-time exemption into the next season, and go from there. But again, that's again like almost a card up your sleeve if you're one of those guys. Top finishers in the Corn Ferry Tour medicals, so the guys that are on medicals off the Corn Ferry Tour. Players winning, so that's where they sit. The next one is a player on the Corn Ferry Tour. So say during this year, someone's won 3 Corn Ferry Tour events, they automatically get a card. That's been a rule for a while now. I think they used to call it the battlefield exemptions. This is where they come in. So even though they automatically get a PGA Tour card, they can't just go and play whatever event they want. They come in at number 30. So it's quite a ways down. Minor medical extensions, Brant Snedeker and Scott Kaczewski come in here. Then we're talking about the reorders. So this is where we were talking before we started recording, trying to get our heads around the reordering. So effectively what happens is the guys that finished 126 to 150 last year, so they kind of don't necessarily retain their card, but they're still PGA Tour members. So they'll be playing the majority of their season on the Corn Ferry Tour, but they will get into events at the moment in that swing sort of off season. Now, when they're playing in that off season, the better they do, they will get re-ranked. And when you are reordered post the RSM, then the Genesis, you will move into category 32. Right, so you'll be sitting in category 32. The people that are not doing that well or still are sitting in 126 to 150 will be in 32A. So that's where you sort of sit above. So if it does get to this point, you get more advantage to go into events. So as an example, Cam Percy, who just missed out, Cam Percy sitting at 126 to 150 with the other guys now. If he has a really good couple of weeks, he'll bump to 32 and they'll still sit in 32A. So he'll get in first before those guys if it gets to that point.
So then on the other side of that, so someone like a Harrison Endicott who finished 25th in the status in Corn Ferry Tour, who's earned a PGA Tour card, he's sort of in that same category. If he plays this early part of the season, does well, he'll be hoping to get into 32.
Correct.
So he can.
He's in currently number 27. So he sits in the
20
right. to 21 top finishers in the Corn Ferry Tour final.
Yeah, sorry, yep.
And so if they do the same thing with that bracket, he goes up to number 26.
Yeah, okay.
So order of entry number 26. So yeah, Michael Gligic, some of the big names are the guys you're expecting to have big years this well. Now, Joseph Bramlett's come back up. He's a good golfer. Brandon Matthews, lots of good golfers there. These guys are the ones, especially in weeks like this week, the Fortinet. These are the weeks when the Corn Ferry Tour guys that are coming off they're battle ready. They've been playing lots of golf. They're ready to come out and just go screaming as hard and fast as they can to try and get re-ranked. And then once they get re-ranked, they bump up one level. Now that one level doesn't sound like a lot, but you've got 50 guys on that list. If you can jump ahead of 10 more guys, you're in a much better place for how many events you're going to be able to get into. Because as we said, we're already going to be probably at 220, 230 guys now that are above you on the list of entry. So that was 120. That was 32 and 32A for the guys that were on the 126 to 150 that we talked about. Non-exempt major medicals, none. Then we've got beyond 150. So the guys that finished again, it's the same theory as what we said about the Corn Ferry, and then the guys that finished 126 to 150, and then they can do a reshuffle and try and jump up. It's the same with the guys that are 150 down. So if you played on the PGA Tour last year and you finished at 175, you still have some sort of status, but you've got so many guys ahead of you. You'll be playing majority of your year on the Corn Ferry Tour. But again, depending on how well you go early, there is another re-ranking at the same time, the shuffle, and that's when you can jump from 35 up to 34. But you can imagine, again, on the 150 plus list, there's got to be another 60 names there. So you could be sitting at number 300 on the order of entry. It might mean you bump up to 280, right? But 280 is actually not a bad spot when it comes down to it, because you actually might be a chance to get into more events versus the guys at 300. Past champion members, so guys that have won a big fence before, but again, these guys aren't, one, applying to play too often, and two, they're so far down the list, even if they really want to play, they're a fair way down. So guys like Rocco Mediate, KJ Choi, Apples, Steve Stricker, Hal Sutton, Ernie Els, Hale Irwin. I mean, some of these guys might get into events on, say, sponsors exemption and things like that. Bernhard Langer, but they're not going to play. I mean, this is not where they are. But if they wanted to, that's where they sit. And I think we talked about Bowdo. So Stephen Bowditch is in that list because he won those events. He's a past champion. At that point, he could get in, but again, we're so far down the list. There's got to be, another 150 names there. Special temporary members. If during the course of a PGA season, a non-member of the PGA Tour wins an amount of points by playing in a PGA Tour through sponsor exemptions equal to the amount won by the preceding season by the 150th finisher, then you can get into here. So if somehow you get in sponsors exemptions and do well enough to be ranked as a 150th from last year, we'll let you sit at option number 37. You've got 500 people ahead of you. You will never get to start on the PGA Tour. Same with anyone who's won a team event, and then it's veteran members. So if not otherwise eligible, and if needed to fill a field, veteran members who have made a minimum of 150 cuts in their career in order of standing on the PGA Tour money list, you can get in. So David Duval, Jose Maria Olazabal, Brendan de Jong, Brett Quigley, Charlie Wee, Craig Parry's on that list. I mean, Craig Parry's not playing the PGA Tour.
No.
But this is what I mean.
Yeah.
So there is rhyme and reason behind the way that they do it, and it is really difficult. It doesn't fix the big issue that we always talk about. How do you get the best guys playing on the Corn Ferry Tour now into a PGA event? Well, this is what we kind of have to work with to start with. And then even when they do jump in, there's no necessary reward for them against what they're trying to achieve on the Corn Ferry Tour that helps them long term. So is there benefit there? It's more stick where you are, earn your stripes, and you'll be back up next year anyway.
Yeah, it's very clear that, and once you see it all mapped out like that, Rocket, myself, other podcasters have, chortled on about bring those young guys up, just give them a start, let them keep their money, let it qualify for their, rankings down below in the Corn Ferry Tour. You can clearly see that once you look at all those categories and who's in and who's not, it's pretty hard for it to work like that effectively without being discriminatory to other players.
And that's the tricky part. It's a not-for-profit members organisation. So it's to say that, Aaron Badley, you can't get in because this guy's playing well on the Corn Ferry Tour. Yeah, you're probably right. The Corn Ferry guy would go better. But Bads is where he is because of what he's done. And it's really hard to kick him out to say, bring in that guy. If that guy's good, he'll take Bads' spot next year, and we don't have to worry about it. He doesn't have to worry about it anymore. But there'll be times when those guys will get in. And but I mean, if you look at the top 50 guys from that tour last year, they're in. They're way above Bads now, but they've got to want to play it. Otherwise, they might just come play Corn Ferry instead.
Speaking of Bads, Monday qualified for this week's event.
He did.
We probably already said that an hour ago when we talked about it.
No, I don't think we did.
I think
he's in. I don't know. Bads is a funny guy. He flashes some form here and there, but it'll only be for a round, and then he just disappears. I think his days of pinching one of these is probably past him. Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah.
By all accounts, you can still putt the dots off it.
Yeah. Well, I was listening to I was going to say Matt Janella, Bob Rotella book the other day about putting, and he talks a lot about some of the stuff that I know Bads uses, and one of the key things was around a ball and throwing a ball, and basically that when it comes to putting, thinking too much about it and pulling the trigger and taking too long, you shouldn't be pulling the trigger more than 2 seconds after you're ready to go. If you're taking longer than that, you're setting yourself up for failure. And he said, it's like getting a ball. And if I say to you, Ross, run over there and I'll throw the ball at you, if I just pick up the ball and throw it at you, I'll hit you 9 times out of 10. If I stop, hold it, measure it, throw it, I'm more chance to miss it. Like if you need to be using that, pick it up, throw it. Like don't overthink it. I remember Bads talking about it a long time ago, and it makes sense.
What was the book? Which Bob Rotella book was it you listening to?
I don't know. Something that don't make a 10 at Lonsdale, I think it was called. I don't remember, to be honest.
Don't have 19 on 2 holes. You had 9 on the first.
But it was, my 10th, yeah.
This little short one just down the hill.
I know. Well, the pot got me.
Big pot, yeah. Okay.
But no, yeah, I've been just listening to it because it's one of those times when there's no golf around and no one's doing podcasts except for us. So I listened to our podcast and then I listened to something else. So I just got an audio book and was listening to that driving somewhere.
You listen to yourself on the podcast?
I listen to us. It's the only podcast that I listen to in normal time. Everyone else I listen to in time and a half.
Really?
Yeah, because I couldn't listen to myself in time and a half because it'd sound weird. But whereas like the No Laying Up or the Tool Junkies boys, it goes in time and a half. And when I caught up with the Tool Junkies boys in Augusta, I realized how slow they speak because they just southern drawl and we're out drinking. But yeah, my brain was like, geez, they're talking very slow.
Hey boys, can you speed this up to 1.5
time and a half?
Oh, that's bizarre. Mike, I think that's it.
That's it. I hope people found that remotely interesting on how people get into an event. I thought it was interesting, and it is hard to explain. But yeah, well, if you do, you can find it on the PGA Tour website.
Well, it just puts another level of information around, those questions that, sometimes people get left with about why people are in, why people are out, why, Harrison Endicott might not appear on every big tournament because it's got a PGA Tour card, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's a whole load of things. And we probably miss half of it, as we, talk along, example being, us expecting that the Corn Ferry Tours should get better standing. There's a whole load of reasons why they don't. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for bringing that to us. And the data lake has returned. Thanks for regaling us with your stories about your golf on the weekend. Get down to Lonsdale Links. It really is a quality golf course. If you want to see some of the design that features on classic Golden Age architecture around the world, well, Mike and Ashley have really tried very hard to give you a modern interpretation and a replication of that at Lonsdale Links, the church pews, the thumbprints, the road holes, square greens, you name it. All of those things that you get to see when you travel a bit, well, they're all down there and on a really quality golf course in a great location at Point Lonsdale. Do you think that'll get us another free round at some stage down there? No?
Maybe.
Okay.
Probably not.
I bought a hat last time I was there. It's a nice hat. Very good. Thanks, mate. We'll see you next time on the My Love of Golf podcast.